One man pressed by Daniels. They go the other way to Jokic. He'll shoot it from midcourt. Oh, nothing but net. What? 0.2 of a second, and it is halftime.
Yes, I was down there in person for that one. The absolute blowout by the Nuggets. But, you know, every time, or not every time, but sometimes you can actually enjoy your own team being blown out when you see a performance that Nikola Jokic put on here in Atlanta on Sunday. Hello, I am Leigh Ellis. Welcome to the Basketball Passport Pod. I'm joined by Lakers Lounge and General Lakers Insider, Anthony Irwin. Anthony, how you doing, man?
Better than the Hawks did that day.
Yes.
But the Hawks are feeling good. Look at your Hawks, Leigh.
Absolutely flying they are right now. Absolutely flying. We will get into that.
As Hawks do.
We will get into that in a sec. Just go through a couple of quick notes here. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Excuse me, YouTube, everything. We're still getting over a little bit of a cough. Somehow we caught this off each other being in two different states, but doing better. Basketballpassportpod@gmail.com is where you want to go. You can follow me at Leigh Ellis 76 on YouTube, and you are on YouTube, Lakers Lounge, correct?
Yep.
And we do this every Thursday, and on Sunday nights we do a general NBA recap. But this one we have a little bit more of a look around the basketball world. And today we will be going to talk about where the EuroLeague Final Four will be held this year. Lonnie Walker had some comments about European basketball. And then I had a chance to speak with Denver Nuggets forward Dario Saric when the Nuggets were here in town. He is from Šibenik, which is where Dražen Petrovic was born. So I have a little clip and something to share with you later on. But I mean, before we get into last night's Cup stuff, I've been to every game this season. Last Friday, of course, was the huge Lakers-Hawks game. I mean, what a game that turned out to be. I've watched that back. I don't know how the Lakers didn't win that game. They seem to always have the advantage. They always seem to have the edge. Even right at the end there in overtime, it seemed like they were home. LeBron getting that insane chase down block on Dyson Daniels and then getting the ball back, which was unbelievable. But then, of course, the Nuggets came in and stomped the Hawks on Sunday. Just like I say, man, it was Jokic went for 48 a night after he went for 56, and there was no Jamal Murray. My God, Jokic is a good player. He is just so much fun to watch. No Jalen Johnson or Bogdanovic for the Hawks, but either way, man, Jokic, I don't know how anyone's going to chase him down for MVP this season.
It's just going to come down to whether or not his team wins enough. You know, he's having one of the best seasons ever. He's having maybe his best season ever. A multi-time MVP is having his best statistical season ever. Is kind of a crazy thing to say. And yet they aren't picking up the wins that you need consistently enough. And that's going to make it interesting because, you know, you had the Russell Westbrook MVP that happened a few years ago when I believe the Thunder were a 6 seed that year. And that MVP hasn't necessarily aged the best. So I'm really kind of curious how that's going to play out. But the Atlanta Hawks, it's so funny earlier in the year, you know, because we've talked a lot about them with you going to, you know, you covering them basically as a beat reporter essentially. And it's so interesting to watch a team get better by focusing more on fit, right? Because I think DeJounte Murray, of the players that were moved in that trade, was the most talented player when they traded him away. But they send him to New Orleans and they get back, you know, Dyson Daniels, and they make room for Risa Shea, who's played really well. DeAndre Hunter has been fantastic recently. And what it allows is you basically have a whole bunch of size and athleticism and length on the perimeter next to Trae Young. It allows Trae to just focus on the things that he is absolutely best at. And then you have guys on the inside who just, you know, clean up the mess. It's a really, really good team with one of the more, you know, baffling records in the league because they've beaten some of the best teams in the NBA, but they've lost to some of the worst. It's really a fascinating story.
There's an incredible pattern around this team. They've won in Boston, they've won in Cleveland, and they won obviously at Madison Square Garden last night. If you look at all three of those games, they start off horribly in those games. Like last night, they were down 12 early to the Knicks, and I was like, that's not what. Like Quinn Snyder knows this. They get off to slow starts. He talks about it all the time. It's like we've just got to be better. Like, there's no. He obviously they're trying to address it, but it sort of happens. But then once they get into their groove, it switches incredibly quickly. And again, the perspective I have now being around the team, going to every practice, going to every game, talking to the players, talking to the coaches and the coaching staff, and you get an idea of what they're trying to do. And I saw that last night, which is like basically spread the floor. Trae Young can score and shoot, but it's not relying on him so heavily as it has done in the past. Like he barely scored against the Nuggets the other day in when the game was still in play. I think he might have only had 1 point in the third quarter. But now, again, they got blown out in that game. But what they're really trying to do is take some of the pressure off Trae being the only creator, the only shooter, and the only scorer. And you see that now. Jalen Johnson can take a few possessions. Vit Krejci coming off the bench can take a few possessions. Kobe Buffkin is really their backup point guard, but his minutes are a bit spotty. And then you got Dyson Daniels who can do that as well. And when I look at the guys when you go to practice, and you're like, okay, they've got 9 very solid deep players right now on that roster with a Kongu coming off the bench, Bogdanovic coming off the bench, and then DeAndre Hunter who has embraced this role, which he wasn't plan on having coming into the season. It was only because he missed time early on, and he missed so much time when he came back. Quinn Snyder stuck with Risa Shea in the starting lineup, and DeAndre has been thriving off the bench to the point where on Sunday's game against the Nuggets when Jalen Johnson didn't play, he went with Larry Nance Jr. to start and kept DeAndre Hunter coming off the bench. So, this team, it still seems to me like they're lacking a little bit of size in terms of interior presence, but on the perimeter, everyone seems to be able to defend their spot, and it's. I mean, it looks great right now. So they go to Vegas now, and they take on the Milwaukee Bucks, who they beat easily in Milwaukee only a couple of weeks ago. So my Hawks could be coming home with the trophy,
and a little richer. I don't know how much. I don't know how much of players' $500,000 that they make actually makes it back home after they win it in Vegas. Do you think?
Yeah,
I would imagine a good chunk of it stays there.
You would think so, yeah. I mean, especially for the guys who are on the big deals there. Trae, obviously, Hunt's got a big one, and Jalen just signed. But for the guys at the at the lower end of the food chain, right now they've already got $100,000, and they're going to pick up a little more no matter what happens against the Bucks. But it is fascinating. I think the vibes are really good around the team, and I think again a lot of that has to do with 2 factors. Trae Young has really embraced the role of like other guys are going to be involved. The ball's going to move around. He's still leading the league in assists on top of all that. But then again, I think DeAndre Hunter accepting and thriving in that role as a bench player to the point where, again, he wasn't even put in the starting lineup when Johnson was out, tells me they're all buying in. And, it looked rough when they lost those 2 games to the Wizards this season. I was like, man, that's how are they going to turn this one around? But they were missing some players. They've got them back now, and it's fun, man. It's fun. Quinn Snyder is he's an engaging guy too. He's always got a little joke. He's always he's got a good sense of humor. And I would love to be in Vegas this weekend, but sadly I won't be.
I'm looking at their roster though, and it needs to be pointed out, now you did mention, I think obviously correctly, that they do need a little bit more size up front, right? Clint Capella is only listed at 6'10".
Yeah.
Onyeka Okongwu is also 6'10". They could use an actual 7-footer, to kind of give themselves some oomph. But their assortment of wings, and I cannot. This has been like the people who have listened to my stuff for years now will say, like, my obsession with wings, it's borders on like the competition between Buffalo Wild Wings and Wingstop and all that. Like it's just. But look at this assortment of wings is legitimately really, really good. You have DeAndre Hunter, who you mentioned earlier. Jalen Johnson is going to be a star. Like I think he's going to make an all-star team at some point.
I think he's going to make it this year. The way he's going,
he might make it this year. Yeah. And then you have Larry Nance Jr. coming off of the bench, who's a really good. Normally we think of wings as like 2-3s, but he's a really good 3-4 wing who might slide down occasionally in some lineups to 5. Risa Shea is filling in nicely in the way that he is. And the nice thing about like DeAndre Hunter being so steady coming off of the bench is that like it allows Risa Shea to come along as slowly or as quickly as he needs to. You could if he just doesn't have it that night, you're like, okay, we'll go to the probably better player anyway coming off of the bench and see what he's got. So I think if things continue at this rate, like when they opened up the season and like you mentioned, lost those couple games to Washington, the annoying Lakers fan in me was kind of looking at DeAndre Hunter like, maybe.
Oh yeah, pick him up. Yeah.
But at this point, they might be buyers. Like at this point, they it looks like they gotta go out and get a big, and I think they might be a top like 4 team in the conference.
Oh, I think that's within range. I mean, a couple of things there. Larry Nance, I'll say this, one of the most ideal vets to have on a team like this because his minutes have been all over the place this season. He started a couple of games and he's had quite a few DNP CDs as well. But I tell you, he gets himself ready. He's always one of the last ones leaving practice. He's always out there working on his game. And when his number is called to go into that starting lineup, he's ready to go. And he's just a really good voice, a good presence to have in that locker room. Now, there's a lot of talk about him being potentially moved because I think he's on an expiring with only about 10 million, which is, virtually nothing in the NBA right now. But I think, honestly, right now, the Hawks would be not really interested in making too many moves because, again, you need that balance on the roster where guys, Garrison Matthews is another one, Vit Krejci, I mentioned him earlier. There's not a ton of minutes for them, but they're ready to go when, guys do miss time. And so don't make a trade just for the sake of making a trade. Clint and Onyeka together, are really, really good, but they both kind of, have what the other one doesn't. Clint is not quite as athletic as Onyeka. Onyeka's maybe not quite just as solid as Clint is as a presence on the defensive end. So, their team is very good right now. The biggest challenge is going to come in a year or two when, Dyson Daniels is due for an extension. They've already signed Jalen Johnson. Bogdanovic as well is going to be up due. There's some talk that the Warriors are interested in Bogdanovic. And I'm not surprised. I think the Lakers would be interested in Bogdanovic as well. I think he'd be exactly what LeBron needs on the wings out there. A guy who he knows he can throw it to, who can just knock down those shots. But again, why would the Hawks want to make a move right now? What do either the Lakers or the Warriors have that could in any way entice them right now when Bogey's another one, happy to come off the bench and performing well? He can shoot, he can run the offense. And so I'm very interested to see what happens here because he's getting minutes. Like it's not like Bogey's, trying to, not getting a role or anything like that. And again, I just look like Andrew Wiggins. I mean, why would you make a deal like that if you're the Hawks? And again, what would the Lakers realistically offer? They're not going to give up Connect or Austin Reeves or anyone young like that. It'd be again a Russell and then a Rui or someone. Fine, but doesn't move the needle for the Hawks.
The funny trade would be trading, Clint and Onyeka and like whatever contracts you need to for Anthony Davis, and then you send the Lakers their own pick back. But yeah, I think the story on this Hawks team all year has been that like you come along at the pace you need to.
Yeah,
and I think if I were the Hawks, I would just focus on adding a little bit more size there, and I would just kind of carry forward the way that the season is taking him. Like ride the wave and don't really try to rock the boat all that much. But yeah, really fun group, really fun cup. Like this NBA Cup, I still hate the courts with a fiery passion. Steve Kerr had the quote the other day
Yeah.
that he thought he was descending into the depths of hell walking onto that court. They got to do something. Like it's just too much. My eyes just can't take it. But the cup itself has been really, really good.
I think it's achieving what it set out to achieve, which is adding value to regular season games. Now, the TV numbers probably aren't being changed at all, but that's fine. But I would, if I was the NBA, I would experiment as well with like getting a different ball. You know, get the red, white, and blue ball in there, or lower maybe the temperature a little on the courts and have a different ball in there. You know, and just do something like that does. Again, give it another little differential from normal regular season stuff, but you know it doesn't change the fundamentals of the game. So while we're on the Warriors here, you know, you must have seen it there last night. Does the Lakers fan in you feel nothing towards the Warriors, or do you sort of be like, hey man, at the end of the day, that was just a brutal call by Billy Kennedy to ultimately decide the game. Jalen Green still had to hit the free throws, and he did, but that was a terrible, terrible call.
Yeah, it sucks that that's going to be the story coming out of that game is what we saw there from the you know that just like calling a loose ball foul when a team is in the bonus and would, you know, take away.
Yeah.
Like let's not even talk about like whether or not it decides the game, because it did, but that game was such this knockdown, drag out, you know, rock fight where points were so hard to come by. And, you know, you're going to give 2 points on it on a possession where, you know, the team doesn't have to do anything down, you know, and you take away that last possession that would have required, you know, scoring a point there to decide the game. That's a bummer. But as far as like the game itself and the way that it's played, you know, the league has tried to really kind of temper down the grifting free throws and the flopping free throws and stuff like that. And that game was super physical throughout. And I think what you see sometimes is like referees kind of regress back to their old habits.
Right.
Kennedy's been in the league for a long time, and some contact is just kind of hard to ignore. That was a brutal call. But, you know, to me, the thing that I kept on thinking while I was watching that game is like, man, the Warriors really need Lauri Markkanen or another guy. They need, you know, that either second or third best player. You have Steph playing at such an incredible level. And Draymond, I thought he was defending like a madman yesterday. He was incredible. But they do need like one more steady player, because like Kuminga is a good up and coming player, but I don't think he's quite ready to step into that role. Pods, I think, is taking a step back this year. And you know, Wiggins is just kind of, you don't really know what you're going to get from him. So I think eventually the Warriors are going to go out and make another trade and bring in that third guy, but does feel like a big missed opportunity not to have traded for Lauri over the offseason when they could have.
Yeah, they certainly could have used him there last night. But, I mean, the thing was that call with Billy Kennedy, that I think, and this is what probably upset most fans, is like how you can call a foul in that situation where the ball is loose and Jalen Green didn't really even have control of it, and he came in and hit it. Now, again, you can complain about it all you want, but it's always, to me, it's like, well, you shouldn't have been in that position. You know, you could win the game. You can't really blame one
the last
call.
3 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. You can't blame the one call on the ref. But just surprised that a veteran like Billy would have made such a bad call, because, you know, it's not dissimilar in a way to what happened with that LeBron chase down block on Dyson Daniels. I mean, Dyson Daniels, it came off his hand, but in the way you play basketball,
right,
you don't call that. You say, hey, man, LeBron knocked it out. Like, if you want to get sure, you want to slow it down and watch the video and say, yeah, look, it came off Dyson's fingertips last. Yeah, technically it's right, but that's just not in the spirit of the game. Right. You know, and just like last night, it's like, okay, maybe, you know, I think it was Kuminga over the back there of Green. Yeah, I mean, there's contact. Yes, there is, but it's a desperate game, a desperate moment, and no one's doing anything. Like, it's not like they shoved him out the way. They're just going for the ball. Jump ball was the only real call you could make in that situation, especially because the Rockets were in the bonus. If they weren't, okay, maybe whatever. But, you know, I sort of felt for the Warriors last night. I'm like, yeah, that to lose on that, is bad. It's a bad call. And as always, we'll be waiting to hear from the 2-minute report this afternoon to see how the league decides to go with it. But
I would feel a lot worse for them had they not crapped their pants for the last 3 minutes of that game. You know, like if it was a really well played game and it was going back and forth and the Warriors were scoring and they looked like they could function on offense. Steph had just taken a really dumb shot, right?
Yeah.
Like even he said after the game he thought it was a good shot, but he probably went a little too early.
Yeah.
It's just like all Steph needed to do there, honestly, is to dribble the ball out, take the shot with 1 second left on the shot clock, and then just make sure it hits the rim and the game is over.
Yeah.
And so, to a certain extent, it's like, yeah, the call is what gets the attention, but like the Warriors deserve to lose that game.
Yeah.
Maybe not in that fashion, but they certainly didn't play well enough to win it. And the other thing too is we just talked about the Hawks and the mixture of vets and rookies and stuff like that. The Rockets have been a great story so far this year, where like Dylan Brooks was a whole meme. When he was done there in Memphis, he's been fantastic for Houston this year. Fred VanVleet had that moment, obviously, where he went at the referees and lost his mind, but I think he's played, he's picked things up. They're defending their tails off. Houston is. They have so much length and athleticism there. And they're another team that, like, if they want to, they could make a trade and speed up their kind of growth here, or they could just ride this wave like Atlanta is. And I think they'll be fine either way. So, and this is, I think, the success of this cup. I know a lot of people are already kind of, bemoaning the potential ratings as the Warriors won't be involved, and the Lakers won't be involved, the Knicks, the Celtics aren't going to be involved. And maybe, like the ratings might take a bit of a hit, but this is where like the league and its partners need to step up and do their job and really kind of tell the stories of these teams that are going to be the future of the league.
Well, that's right. I mean, for me, I look at the two matchups. We got we got the Rockets and the Thunder, and the Bucks and the Hawks, and I'm like, this could go either way. All four of these teams could win this, and that's what's great. Again, of course, the Knicks and the Warriors and the Lakers and the Celtics are these historic teams that would make it a bigger spectacle from a TV standpoint. But I don't care, because I'm like, hey, man, the Hawks have been playing well enough to go on here all the way and do it. I'm never going to count out Giannis on the Bucks. I mean, he's just a beast. And then you look at the two teams. I mean, the Thunder's defense right now is almost the best the league has ever seen. It's so good. And then the Rockets are an exciting team to watch. So for me as a fan, I'm like, this is great. This is enjoyable. And one of these franchises is going to walk away with a trophy. So good on them. I mean, like, I'm not one of those ones who's like, well, without those names, who cares? It's boring. I'm like, I prefer it like this, so that you get other teams with a real chance to win something. And the financial incentive is obviously there, but I really do think the players, and we saw it there last night, realize like, hey, there's something else here to play for. Everyone wants to win. And that's what makes it exciting. Excuse me. And I mean, again, when you are following a team like the Hawks, to get that win there last night in the Garden, man, after that start, I was like, I wish I was there for that. That would have been great. See Trae Young galloping, and then he's shooting the dice on the center square. Trae Young on it was
that might be a felony in Ohio now.
On Monday's media session, Trae Young, he was asked, like, you're the bit of a villain there in New York. He's like, I don't want to be a villain. I'm not trying to be a villain. I just want to go out there and play, and it is what it is. And I'm like, I can't wait to see him next time. So you don't want to be a villain, but you want to roll the dice on the and he pointed to the floor where he hit the 3-pointer from and stuff like that. So but it's great. And I mean, I think it's good. I think it's fun. And most important thing for me is that there are regular season games that they've got stakes. That's what really matters, because, the game, the Hawks and the Lakers, as I mentioned on Friday night, was great. The atmosphere was amazing here because there were so many Lakers fans. It got close. LeBron had 39. AD had 39. It went to overtime. There was drama until the end. LeBron almost didn't even play in that game. Remember, he picked up the injury against Houston, maybe, was it? I think.
Yeah, he's been kind of dinged up.
Yeah, and it was like if LeBron doesn't play, it's like the air is just out of the balloon. But he played, he went hard, and he nearly hit the game winner there. Yeah, so great stuff. I think it's been really enjoyable, and now. Man, the Hawks. We could be bringing some silverware back here to the Atlanta. We won't see him in Atlanta until next Saturday, not this Saturday in a couple of days' time. Not until the following Saturday when they play the Memphis Grizzlies. So the parade will have to wait.
I think with the way that this cup has gone, and with the way that, like, the momentum that it has right now, I think I'm at the point here where I think they need to probably try to find a way to expand it and just make December a cup month.
Right?
We're entering December. All of these games that take place in December, in some way, shape, or form, have to affect the cup. And whether it's point standings, whatever it is, you have your specific points, your specific cup matchups in your pool that are worth a certain number of points. But I think also on top of it, maybe have like an extra, if you get a win, it counts as a point towards your cup total, just so that like all of the momentum and like the focus in December is on the cup, so that, when we get to the semifinal and the final eventually in Vegas, it's the culmination of this thing that everybody has been paying attention to.
Yeah. Well, I think they're going to keep trying new things and trying to keep, giving it highlighting it and making it different and special. And so far, so good. I still think as well we should the Final Four not in Vegas. Let's go to Europe. Let's go somewhere else. Let's go to Mexico City or Vancouver or somewhere like that. I mean,
move it around.
Yeah, Vegas is like, it's just not the place. I would take it somewhere special, and I think Mexico City would be a great start. Great place to start that. So, anyway, that is the NBA Cup update. Got a little update. Speaking of a Final Four or a Cup, the EuroLeague Final Four was, I believe, going to Belgrade next year, which is around the end of May. But it was just announced the other day, it's actually going to be in Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi. Apparently what happened was the Abu Dhabi Tourism Board, or the government there, stepped up with a $50 million donation, and EuroLeague were persuaded to take it away from Belgrade.
Getting their FIFA on.
And they decided, okay, we can be coerced into
so out there and brazen. At least we aren't calling it like lobbying or something like that. It's just it's just a bribe.
Hey, listen, like they want more basketball events out there. We know they're that part of the world, the United Arab Emirates and I think Saudi Arabia are looking to buy a big piece of the EuroLeague pie. And they get their first sort of chance here to host a big event, which, look, it's going to be very interesting. They've got the facilities. We saw that. They're going to be playing in the same arena that the Nuggets and the Celtics played at earlier this season. And it's close enough to Europe that people will fly in. Fans from whichever four teams make it will fly there. Maybe not the Madrid fans. They don't travel as much, but if you get a Belgrade team, you get a Lithuanian team and a Turkish team or a Greek team there, the fans will travel there. But it's interesting because I've been to the last two Final Fours. One was in Berlin and the other one was in Kaunas in Lithuania. And there is a different feeling on the streets. I mean, fans are out there celebrating. And in Berlin, just in the May we just had, Fenerbahce, Olympiacos, and Panathinaikos there. So the fans brought the energy. So that's why I feel they will bring the energy and the support, even if it's in Abu Dhabi. But it's just going to feel a little bit different, that it's not a traditional big European basketball city. And I'm wondering how that is going to affect just the atmosphere around the event. What do you think? What are your thoughts? I know you haven't been there, but from what you've seen and from what we've talked about, your thoughts on it going to be out there?
Yeah, one of the big pulls to these events, right, is how incredible the fans are, the scene, the vibe, the energy that comes with these events. And yeah, I do think it's a bit of a risk to move it somewhere that might not have that same energy. And I don't know what they would need to do to ensure that it has that same energy. I don't know, like yeah, I legitimately don't know what they could do. I mean, like if they're willing to throw so much money to bribe people to get it there, like could you make could you discount the amount that it costs to get there for
Right.
fans so that they could go and bring that vibe with them? Yeah, I think it is. I'm really curious how this is going to go. If and how quickly EuroLeague kind of readjusts if it doesn't go the way it needs to, because I think EuroLeague is very and rightly very proud of the way that those games look and
Yeah.
sound and feel. And if you rob that scene of that in any way, that I think is a bit of a hit to the brand. So I think that's something they have to be very, very conscious of.
Yeah, and that's right. I think you don't want it to look like it's a sanitized version. You want to make sure the fans can get there. What will be interesting to see is obviously Emirates is based in Dubai or Abu
Mhm.
Dhabi there, but Turkish Airlines is the EuroLeague's biggest sponsor. So there is going to be a clash there because again I think you're right, and they need to find a way to make it so that it is financially easier for fans to travel from wherever they're coming from in Europe. But does that come via Emirates or does that come via Turkish Airlines? Because I can't imagine that's something that is going to be easy to finagle there, because Turkish Airlines pays a lot to sponsor the EuroLeague, and they're going into one of their biggest competitors' hubs there in Abu
Yeah.
Dhabi. So that's going to be
Maybe they'll compete to make their tickets cheaper. Wouldn't that be
maybe
nice? We always talk
so.
about the free
Yeah,
market to make everything so
yeah,
expensive. Let's go the
yeah.
opposite direction.
Yeah. So anyway, exciting, and I'd heard sort of talk about this, but again, I thought it was locked in that Belgrade was getting it, and I was like, great, that's a great city of itself, and it's an absolutely perfect basketball destination. So the Emirates anyway came along and. Well, got the job done. So that's all that really counts. While we are talking EuroLeague, I saw this quote coming around from Lonnie Walker, who was a guest on my man Chima Moneki's podcast this week. Who's been now, Lonnie's been in at Zalgiris there for a couple of months. And this is what he said about European basketball. The way that everyone plays here is different, man. That's something I respect because it's real basketball. Now, he sort of went on to talk about a little bit more about how much more of a team concept it is, and how much more of, the ball moves around. It's not the one-on-one stuff. And that it is a big difference in European basketball to the American style. And Lonnie, after a bit of a rough start to his career, started to really thrive out there in Europe. And guys like Lonnie, look, if he gets an offer from because I think he's got an out in his NBA, in his EuroLeague contract there, where he can go to the NBA as of January to get onto a playoff roster if needed. And you think he's, excuse me, man, he'll exercise that if he can. But I love it when a guy, who didn't start out the season expecting to go to Europe is out there now playing well and really understanding how the basketball is different. It's still high quality. It's not the NBA. It never will be, but it's tough. It's physical, and the way they play is a really fun style.
So I saw somebody post a stat where he has a usage rate of about 33% so far there. And I can understand why Lonnie would think that the style of basketball is better or more fun there for him, because he gets a little bit more time on the ball. What I will say, though, is that, like, this is how travel goes, right? Like, this is how getting out and expanding your mind and expanding your experiences. Like, you go somewhere you weren't necessarily so sure about it. Maybe like for me and my family, we grew up in Southern California. Thought we would be in Southern California our whole lives. Some work stuff happened and needed to move out here to Austin, and have absolutely loved it. You know, we own a house, and we got to experience some stuff in living out here that we would not have been able to experience, I don't think, in the same way if we were still in Southern California. And it's all a matter of like how quickly you can adapt and how open you are to those new experiences. And I did get to, when he was a Laker, I did get to interview Lonnie. He was on the show when we were doing it there for Silver Screen and Roll. Super nice guy, super genuine guy, very thoughtful person. I do think eventually he'll make his way back to the NBA. There's just, I know the Lakers could frankly use him. And if they trim enough roster spots, I've heard that they've had some internal conversations about potentially bringing him back. But I also knew when we got word that he was going to be going out there, knew he'd be super popular with fans because his game translates really, really well to basically any style of play. And then I also kind of had a good idea that he would enjoy it out there himself, just because I think he is a very open-minded and accepting person. It's really fun story all the way around. Whether or not it's like better basketball or anything like that is played in the NBA, I think that's where we kind of lose the energy of the story. I think what matters way more to me is how cool it is to watch somebody make the best of the situation that they're kind of thrust into.
That's 100% right. He's not out there, complaining about living conditions or anything like that. He's out there really embracing a surprise experience. And that is huge because, Lonnie, it's almost certain he's going to be in the NBA again at some point. But having this experience hopefully will help him share that with others to be like, hey, man, if you're going to sit on the bench in the NBA and be 10th or 11th, you may as well go to Europe where you can play and work on your skills, and you're playing against tough competition that might get you back in to the NBA anyway at a different time. I mean, the analogy or the reference I make often is the Dante Exum one. He couldn't stick around in the NBA. He went out to Partizan Belgrade, played really well, and then got himself on an NBA Finals team there in the Mavericks. Now he's obviously injured again right now, but the point being is, it's not like a sort of a death knell to your career. It's like, hey, go out there and actually use it as the experience, and then on top of that, you get a real chance to live in a country and a city that's different and something that you probably didn't even think about. And you get to grow as a person, which is, doubly valuable. So,
I think also about the way that like fans are going to respond to somebody like Lonnie. Like, for one thing, fans are going to like somebody like Lonnie getting there because he's going to help your team in Europe win basketball games. He's an excellent basketball player. And like he almost single-handedly helped the Lakers win a playoff game against the Golden State Warriors in that Lonnie Walker the fourth quarter in game 4. Like all of that, but like on top of it, I think like any person who lives in like a tourist destination, all that they kind of look for is like, hey, when you come and visit, can you accept, like, can you really relish in our culture, our way of life? Can you see how we live, and can you open yourself up to us welcoming you into this as much as it's just like, yeah, I'm going to be here for a few months, then I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
And I think with fans, I've seen a couple clips and stuff like that of him playing, and the fans are just absolutely loving the Lonnie Walker experience, not just as a basketball player, but from the standpoint of like, no, he's here and he really considers himself one of us while he's been here. That's really important. I think that's really, really cool, especially given the reputation Americans have elsewhere
abroad,
around the world. We show up and it's like, y'all got French fries, and it's like, no, like, it really it's really fun story all the way around.
It is. And shout out to my man Chima Monecki as well on his podcast out there, having a good season at Baskonia. And good stuff all around. Okay, so moving on to today's destination, and we have been to Croatia before, but with the Denver Nuggets in town on Sunday, Dario Saric was in town. I wasn't expecting him because he hasn't really been playing. He's been injured, and often when those guys are on those longer-term injuries, they don't travel. But Dario was in town, and I was excited because it gave me a chance to speak to him. He's from Šibenik, which is where Dražen Petrovic was born. And there is a court that was built about 15 years or so ago in Dražen's honor. And it's a really, really cool court. They did such a fantastic job in building this, in honoring him. There's a statue of him out the front. So I sat down actually with Dario for over 5 minutes. I mean, he was so warm to talk to, so friendly, so chatty. And we talked so much about Croatia, Croatian basketball, and of course, Dražen. And I combined a little bit of it down here. It's only 30 seconds, but this is a little clip from our conversation.
He left a great memory. I think a lot of people coming outside of Croatia, come to Šibenik to visit the statue, to really remember the time they watching basketball in their time, and people feel Dražen in themselves a little bit. All little kids, me too. So always have like that imagine of Dražen being a big legend. We like to say, Šibenik's son.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to sort of compress it down because he talked for so long, and it was so. I found it just so interesting, and the way that Dražen is held in Croatian and Šibenik people, by the people there is truly special because Dario wasn't even born when Dražen died, but he still carries that important historical significance, not just in a basketball world, but in a in just the person he means to Croatia and the Balkan region. And man, I know I've talked about it a lot, but I hope you get a chance to go to Croatia one day, man. The basketball culture out there is unbelievably fun.
Yeah, these guys get the same question after every game, right? What do you think about this call? What do you think about this rotation? You missed this shot. You did this. And to get the opportunity to kind of like talk about home and talk about a hometown hero, right?
Yeah.
Talk about a hometown legend and an icon. And like, I would love to see the extended clip where he moves from post-game scrum to, oh, we're talking about this. And I bet you could probably physically see him, kind of lean into the mic and lean into the conversation. That's like, the whole point, I think, of this project, right, is to, humanize some of these players that I had never heard Saric speak before, like
right.
In that, and a lot of these international players are like reluctant to even speak because of the language barrier, and they don't want to use the wrong word and all that stuff. And I think it's really cool that he gets that opportunity to talk about something that is clearly so near and dear to him. Hits home literally in the way that Dražen did. The part of it, like with Croatian basketball and that entire region, is it's been fun. Like we talked about Lonnie Walker and his thoughts on the style of play in Europe compared to here. It's been really fun to watch, that clash of waves where you have the way that basketball is played in the AAU circuit and the way that the basketball is played internationally. And in the NBA right now, you're seeing this combination of those two styles that is really making for. I wish they would do something to limit the number of 3-pointers that are taken and stuff like that. But you're watching the entirety of the sport itself being lifted as a result of those two waves kind of colliding in the middle there. And I can't wait to see where this all goes, because Croatian basketball is not going anywhere. Balkan basketball is not going anywhere. And it's clearly having. We started the show with that shot from Nikola Jokic, who does that once a quarter against the Lakers for some reason. But like,
I love the trauma, man. I love the trauma you've got of Nikola Jokic.
It hurts. It's like deep-seated pain But yeah, I just think that would be something that I would be like if I had the opportunity to talk to more internationally based basketball
Yeah.
players, their thoughts on that clash between, we always hear about like, American players going to Europe and how they feel about it there. I would love to hear what international players feel about the style of play that they have to get
Yeah.
used to when they get here.
Yeah. And it's great because like in this last week, I spoke with Bogdan, of course, I speak to him quite often. Jokic, I spoke to him post game and since Šarić as well. And I mean, these guys are just so interesting to talk to. And there is a big change of culture from where they come from to where they're playing right now. But there is such a great bond too. And with Jokic and Bogdanovic, I asked them both about their friendship because before the game they were joking around. Boggy didn't even play in that game; he was injured. And I asked them both after the game. I said, Nicola, it looks. I know you guys are friends and you play on the same team, but you look like you're just like buddies, just goofing around, pushing each other around and having a great time. And the way that he spoke about Bogdanovic and the way that Bogey spoke about Jokic, man, it was awesome. I'm trying to sort of put together another little clip of that as well. But the problem is these guys talk for too long. I'm like, guys, for social media, I need you in and out in like 12 seconds each, okay? So I can put it up 30 seconds and that's it, But they give such detailed, such warm, thoughtful answers that, you're there just going like, man, how am I going to trim this down like I did here with Šarić? I got 5 minutes of him talking. I'm like, I can't put up the 5 minutes. It's not as fun to listen to if you're not actually having that conversation with him. But man, it's just such a fun experience to actually talk to these guys and again, like you say, talk to them about not just like, hey man, in the third quarter this play happened or that play happened. Like talk to them about something that's away from the basketball court and they will just give you such great stuff.
Yeah. Because the other thing too is American players are so media trained.
Yeah.
Right. There's even like a common rhythm to the way that they speak when they answer these questions.
Yeah.
Right. And European players don't necessarily have that same training and so like if you do get them talking about something that is not, the typical day-to-day trudge through the mud that an 82 game season is, that's where some really fun nuggets can be found.
Oh man, and I asked Bogdanovic as well. Like I said, listen, man, you play with Jokic, so you know what he's like. But what's it like when you're against him and he's doing that same shit? And he's like, oh man, it pisses you off, Like he taps the ball, he's always taunting you, he's always talking trash, and then he gets it and he shoots and he scores. He said, but you don't see that when you're on his team for Serbia. You just see this great player doing all this incredible stuff. But when you're against him, he drives you crazy. So, and the other thing is, Bogey, athletically is there's not a shred of fat on him. He's incredible shape. He works out a lot. He's got, he goes to the gym, he lifts weights and does all that. Jokic up close in person after the game on Sunday, after he did his media, he just sat down in the corner and basically drunk a box of popcorn. Just
I swear, I truly believe this, Lee. This is a theory I've had here for a long time. I'm pretty sure Jokic, I think he's well conditioned and all that stuff. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But I truly believe that like a big part of why Jokic is able to run and do things is just from pain tolerance from growing up with two older brothers.
Yeah.
It's like most people might feel like the cramp or something like that you feel when you're running up and down the court, but he might not actually feel it because he's so used to his brothers kicking his butt.
Yeah.
Because he does not look like somebody who should be able to run as long as he does.
Oh man,
he walks around like he has a head cold. I've never seen him on a court with his mouth closed. He can't breathe physically, cannot breathe through his nose, and he just kicks people's butts up and down the court.
And you know what he does before the game? He does that big sort of sprint in the tunnel before the game. Well, in Atlanta, he did it a little bit differently, not quite in the tunnel, off to the side where the buses come in. And I didn't actually see it. What was happening was I was standing there waiting for the players to come out, and so their security sort of wouldn't let us go. So I was just waiting for them to come out, and then we would go behind the players. And all of a sudden, I just hear this boom, 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 boom. And it turned around. It was like a horse coming at me. It was just like, and this guy is sprinting along, huge legs, giant steps. And then it's like, man,
Like
that's him.
Optimus Prime is
I
running
know,
at you.
I know. And this is the night after he went for 56 against the Wizards as well. So there was no excuses, no fatigue. It's like another game. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Oh man,
I really honestly think that like he's in good shape, clearly.
Oh, he is. He is.
But like for him to operate at the level that he does physically has a lot to do with the fact that like his brothers just beat him into oblivion.
Yeah.
Over the course of his childhood.
Well, and I know you know this from the trauma of watching him against Davis, but it's the same thing with the Hawks. Like a couple of times he's got the ball and it's like, I know he's just going to go into his little twisty, twirly step back here. Like we should be able to guard it, send an extra player to come out. He still does it and he turns around and hits those shots. And, I mean,
I hate him.
He's amazing.
One man pressed by Daniels. They go the other way to Jokic. He'll shoot it from midcourt. Oh, nothing but net.
Just the cleanest
I
shot.
get such a joy watching that happen against a team that isn't the Lakers.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, he's great. Oh, man. All right. Well, I think that's about it for us for this week. Anyway, it's been a fun catch-up because we didn't see you on Sunday because I was at that game, of course, the rare Sunday night Hawks game against the Nuggets. It turned out to be, again, it was a fun stinker, if there's such a thing like that. I was expecting the Hawks to make a run. In fact, honestly, I was expecting the Hawks to blow the Nuggets out after they were on a back-to-back. No Jamal Murray. They'd been in Washington. But then no Jalen and no Bogey. That certainly changed the Hawks lineup a bit. And then it wasn't even close after the first quarter. The Hawks' legs were in mud. And the Nuggets, it's funny seeing Michael Malone because the Nuggets had not been playing well and they needed a win. Even after Quinn Snyder waved the white flag, he kept Jokic and Porter out on the court anyway because he was like, we're not losing this one. They're up 24 points with like 2 minutes to go. And he's like, he went all Tom Thibodeau and he's just like, nah, we watch these guys. And I think the last minute or so he went he emptied the bench, but for a few plays there, Michael Malone was like, we're walking out of here with a win, and they got it. So
we should have recorded. It was such a blowout that we maybe could have gotten away with recording.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because I got home around.
Oh, I meant during the game. I think.
During the game. Yeah. We should. Anyway, we will be back on this Sunday night around 8 p.m. Eastern, where we do an NBA look around and see what's happening, and we will have our NBA Cup finalists by then because the semis are on Saturday, and the final is on Tuesday, which is a little bit weird. I thought they would have brought that forward a day or so, maybe on the Monday or even the Sunday, play the games Friday, Sunday. But I guess they're keeping it. Yeah, right. Okay, probably a good point there. Yeah, so the Hawks are going to be out in Vegas for nearly a week by the time they get back. Well, unless they lose, of course, on Friday to the Bucks, but they won't because the Hawks are absolutely flying right now. The trophy's coming home. Anyway, that is it for us. We will see you on Sunday night around 8 p.m. Eastern.